Hi kids, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Mike Uyak, and I kind of wanted to discuss multiculturalism today. Um, One, because I'm really hungry and wanted to come up with something that's fairly hearty. And there's a dish that I've been dying to try. This is not a recipe redemption. From what I'm told, if you make this right, there is no redemption necessary. It is amazing, but it's kind of weird, and it sounds weird when you think about it. But a little background. So you remember back in the late '80s, early '90s, there was a big push toward fusion cuisines. You'd have Japanese Italian or Thai Spanish or some Russian Mexican combinations or whatever. People were trying to mix and match stuff to come up with innovative new dishes to get people to go into the restaurants because they were serving the same old boring things. And there's been a big pushback against that because after a while they started throwing things together that really don't belong together, or just throwing so many things into one dish that your brain just has no idea what it is you're eating. And so there's been a big pushback about that. But when you think about it, uh, fusion cuisine, if you ignore the catchphrase of fusion cuisine, people have been combining cuisines from different parts of the world since we first started trading with one another, and or colonizing. And so there are a lot of now iconic dishes that are the result of two cultures coming together and creating something new. Think of the banh mi sandwich in Vietnam. You couldn't really have that without that French inspired baguette and the mayonnaise that they brought to it, and but the pork and the local vegetables and the local vinegars and all combined with those French ingredients to create something new. And in the same way, um, this dish that I'm doing today is a result of that, and it is, in some ways, I suppose you could say, the epitome of fusion cuisines. Um, it falls into a category of what I call what you got stews. That's a term that I learned from the outdoor writer and humorist Patrick F. McManus. And the story goes that two hunters come across each other out in the woods, and they're way away from in the middle of nowhere and miles away from either of their own personal camps. And they're the only living thing that they've seen all day. They've been completely skunked as far as hunting is concerned. They're wet, they're tired, they're hungry, and they don't really want to hike another 10 miles back to wherever they're camped out. So one of the hunters says, well, we're here in this clearing. Why don't we just camp out here for the night? We can just share whatever food we've brought with us, and we'll make do, camp out here, and then go home in the morning. And the second hunter says, that sounds good. Well, what will we make? I mean, I don't really have a whole lot with me. And the first hunter says, well, let's just pool our resources and make some sort of a stew. I've got a little pot here, and we can build a fire, and we'll make a stew. And the second hunter says, a stew? Well, what are we going to put in this stew? And the first hunter says, well, what you got? And this dish is called Budae, and it comes from Korea. It stems from the post-Korean War era, and it is sort of the epitome of what you got stew. Um, After in the years after the war, there was a strong American military presence in the area, but a lot of both the villagers, they didn't have a whole lot of money, and the army guys, they pretty much had just what the army gave them as far as provisions are concerned. So they had a lot of food, but a lot of it wasn't very inspiring. And this was before they really developed good MREs, so you were getting lots of canned chipped beef, and chili beans and things like that. So they're all hearty foods, and you won't starve, but you kind of almost wish you would. Um, and so what eventually happened was the locals and the army guys got together, pooled their resources, and created a dish that was that sounds really weird, but it's greater than the sum of its parts. It's called Budae jjigae. It is that literally translated as army base stew. And here's what goes into it. This dish starts with a sort of a broth base, which is made with 4 cups of water, a couple of dried shiitake mushrooms, 5 or 6 dried anchovies with the heads and any insides removed, and kombu, which is a type of seaweed. And that's been simmering for about a half an hour. Next, we assemble the rest of the dish. In a wide pan, start off with about 3/4 of a pound of ground pork. It's always a good place to start. Okay, here's where it starts to get interesting. 1 can of Spam, sliced. And I'm just going to arrange it around the pan so that it hopefully cooks evenly. Hot dogs. And I have sliced these into about inch-long chunks on the bias, because I'm artsy like that. Still with me? Next, I'm going to dump probably about half a jar's worth of kimchi. That's the spicy pickled cabbage that Koreans are famous for. And just because it can't be spicy enough, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons worth of red chili paste. And about 3 tablespoons of mirin or rice wine. And a couple tablespoons of dark soy sauce. That's right. We're going to add a can of baked beans on top of this. Stay with me now. And on top of that, I told you this was crazy. On top of that, rice cake. Now, it's not the dried styrofoam-like snack. These are basically rice flour noodles. They roll them into about a 2-inch cylinder and then slice them on the bias, and so they almost look like sliced white carrots. Now add the broth, and it doesn't actually, the recipe that I have, which I actually got from Anthony Bourdain, didn't say anything about straining it or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of the kombu and the shiitake mushrooms, because this dish ends up being really red, so it just gives it a little extra color contrast. After simmering for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom, you add the final ingredient. That's right, a package of ramen noodles without the seasoning packet. I'm just going to work this around until it gets submerged in the liquid and has a chance to rehydrate. After simmering for about another 5 minutes, I'm just going to toss in some sliced green onions just to give it a little extra color and a little pop of vegetable flavor. So here we have a badly plated bowl of Budae jjigae. I can't wait to try this. A little hot dog. Some of the ramen. It's actually very, very hot. It doesn't sound like it should work, but it does. The sugar, the sweetness of the baked beans helps to kind of cut the saltiness of the anchovy and the Spam and well, the hot dogs for that matter. But the anchovy gives it that Southeast Asian flavor with the fish, sort of the fish sauce, without actually having to add fish sauce to it. just the right amount of spiciness. Porky. It's very rich. It's reduced down, and a lot of the ingredients, especially like the ramen, has absorbed a lot of the liquid, so it's thickened up. It's a very, very rich sauce. It's complex. It's salty, sweet. There's a little bit of bitterness from the vinegar from the kimchi. Um, it it doesn't sound like it should work, but it's fantastic. I wow. I like the little rice cakes in there. Um, they're chewy little noodles. Ground pork. I mean, it's pork. Mm. And it's picked up a lot of the flavors. Mm. And I used to really hate spam, but I'm starting to develop an appreciation of it as I get older. Um, I don't know if that's one of those things where all my taste buds have been destroyed from cheap booze or what, but but I'm developing more of an appreciation of it. It's still super salty, but the like I said, the sweetness tames it down, and it's just a sort of a slightly gelatinous, porky flavor. Mm. It's really quite good. Um, and there's absolutely no mystery now as to why this has become kind of a beloved comfort food sort of dish. It took me all about 45 minutes to make, and most of that was just waiting for that broth to simmer. Um, it's super easy to make. Um, I kind of hesitate to enter all these ingredients into MyFitnessPal uh, to see just how bad this is for me. But this is a one pot dinner for a full family. I'm sure you can get, probably about five, maybe six servings of this size. Um, and so if that's, 700 calories for a meal, that's not too bad, but I'm a little afraid to find out. But today, I'm not going to worry about it. Because this is too good to pass up. So, with that, until next time, I'm Mike Uyak, and happy eating.